The pressures on specialist nurses are just one manifestation of the financial pressures on the NHS as a whole at the moment. Those of us who work with Professor Mike Richards, the National Cancer Director, and his team at the Department of Health will say that in the current pressure to move resources to the front line and tight resources at that, the scope to do national innovation in prostate cancer is now becoming harder and harder. Now let me just ask again, another bit of market research, who here is from Wales? Excellent. More than in proportion to the population, I think. Well, you will be well aware of the decision which has been taken not to commission brachytherapy services for the men of Wales. Brachytherapy, a treatment which is no longer experimental or forefront or untested, a treatment which is increasingly available for men in England and Scotland, is being denied to men in Wales on cost grounds, and on the grounds essentially that it adds nothing to the treatments that are already available. Taxotere, or docetaxel, the chemotherapy drug for advanced prostate cancer, approved recently by the National Institute for Health and Clinical Excellence, to be made available in the health service across England and Wales, which makes a real difference to men who are ending the hope of other treatments. And yet still some men are having to take on titanic battles with their primary care trust to access that treatment. And you'll have seen some of that stuff in the media. So whether the battle is for Taxotere or whether it's for brachytherapy or whether it is for any other tried and tested treatment, it is simply unacceptable that men in their families who are already struggling to come to terms with a diagnosis of prostate cancer are having at the same time to struggle with the bureaucracy of the NHS to access that treatment. Often, men go to extraordinary lengths, and some are in the audience today, to fight these campaigns. They fight those campaigns in the glare of high-profile media. They do it when they're unwell. It saps them of energy. And I just want to pay real tribute to those men who are prepared to stand up and to fight for the treatments that aren't available. Now, innovation is a theme which is running through today's conference, and the challenges of taking innovation and getting it to be systematically adopted throughout the NHS across the UK. Now, I think that we can be encouraged by the extent to which prostate cancer has become a field for innovation. We're hearing today about innovation in research, we're hearing about innovation in nursing practice, we're hearing innovation later in terms of public awareness raising. So a lot of encouragement, I think. But we've got to drive that innovation into practical reality. We know that no advance was ever made in any field of endeavour without innovation. It is simply not good enough for Health Commission Wales or any other PCT, for example, to deny access to brachytherapy on the basis that it essentially adds nothing to what's already available. It is by extending choice, it is by innovating, it is by learning, it is by expanding knowledge that clinical practice improves and the patient experience improves. The process of health development in the UK is a bit like a tug of war. Limited finances pull in one direction, health campaigners pull in another. There are ministerial pronouncements, and media campaigns, and legal challenges, and it's often an uncomfortable experience. But in the end, some kind of equilibrium is achieved, and some movement is made. Innovation in prostate cancer is no optional extra. It isn't a luxury. It is essential morally, and it's essential economically. And the prostate cancer movement has got to drive that message hard. What do I mean by it's essential economically? Well, what I mean is that prostate cancer remains an area of major uncertainty. The differential nature of different prostate cancers, the tigers and the pussycats, the imperfect state of diagnosis and prognosis leads to all the difficulties that we understand, the difficulties I referred to earlier. In some ways, you can even say that prostate cancer is an overstated problem. Yes, 32,000 men a year are diagnosed with the disease, and there's every likelihood that that number is going to go up over the years to come. But we also know that many of those cancers, if we could be certain, are not going to be problematic for the man. But we can't distinguish between those that are and those that aren't, the tigers and the pussycats. What we've got to see is determined investment in new screening technologies and in new prognostic and diagnostic tools that would enable the NHS to focus its attention on where the problem really lies, to focus on those men really at risk, and to focus attention on those men with aggressive prostate cancers, and to spare those men who have very slow-growing cancers from the debilitating impact of the treatment that can have such a serious side effect in terms of their treatment and their experience of life. So yes, that I do believe that short-term investment will bring long-term gains. It would be a false economy not to do that. So finally then, a reminder. There are three things that are going to make a difference to this campaign to make a difference. Concerted action amongst all of us, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment. A favourable and supportive community and a public and a media that are supporting the cause. We've touched on that. We need to have a responsive and a better funded NHS, and I've talked about that. And I just want to come back again to the need for us to work together. The conference today is a manifestation of a growing movement for change in the UK in prostate cancer. 2 years ago, when we had the first conference, there were just 320 people at the conference. Last year, it was up at 360 or 370. This year, we're up at about 450. There is a growing movement across the UK. We're seeing very powerful campaigning beginning to happen across the UK. And what we've got to do is not only maintain that, but we've got to broaden it and deepen it. And we've got to be campaigning with the governments in the United Kingdom. And we've got to be campaigning locally with members of Parliament and Scottish members of Parliament and Welsh Assembly members to get that message across. Let us work together relentlessly to ensure that innovation accelerates, that innovation sticks in the National Health Service, and innovation is simply not allowed to be squandered. That's our challenge, and I know from working with you guys that we're up to it. Thank you.